Supreme Court stays arrest warrant. National trade policy launched. And Southern Highlands candidates protest moving counting to Goroka.
This is National EMTV News with Helen Sayer.
Good evening and welcome. This is Thursday's news. The Supreme Court has stayed the warrant of arrest against Prime Minister Peter O'Neill. Chief Justice Salamo Injia heard from Mr. O'Neill's lawyer this afternoon that the National Court ruling by Justice Colin McKyle did not consider two Supreme Court binding references when passing the decision to remove the stay on the warrant of arrest. The case has been adjourned. Since independence, Papua New Guinea has dealt with trade matters on ad hoc and uncoordinated ways. However, last night, the government launched the country's first ever national trade policy. Outgoing Minister for Trade, Commerce and Industry Richard Maru said with the policy, the government will ensure that trade is conducted with Papua New Guinea's interest as priority.
PNG's National Trade Policy 2017 to 2032 was launched last night by the Deputy Prime Minister Charles Abel, outgoing Minister for Trade, Commerce and Industry Richard Maru, European Union Ambassador to PNG Ioannis Georkarakis Agiropoulos, and the Secretary for Trade, Commerce and Industry John Andreas.
Let's give a big round of applause.
Mr. Andreas said it took 5 years to consult all stakeholders, draft and redraft the document to ensure the policy objectives were attainable.
Today marks an important day for PNG as we are launching PNG's first ever national trade policy. Since independence, we have been dealing with trade matters without any clear policy directive. And I'm pleased to say that after 41 years of independence, we now have a comprehensive trade policy.
The strategic implementation plan for the policy is still in draft form. The strategic implementation plan sets out the key activities, budget, and time frame to deliver those activities. Outgoing Minister for Trade, Commerce and Industry and the new Minister for National Planning, Richard Maru, is satisfied that the trade policy is driven by guiding principles. He said PNG has suffered huge losses of income because of low tariffs. He added that PNG has entered into trade agreements in the past which are not in the best interest of the country.
The way we do business in international trade and domestic trade in the future is guided by some key principles. And I'm happy to inform you, if you look at a new trade policy, our principle number one is whatever we do in international trade must not be at the expense of national interest. Our public interest is always number one.
The trade policy was made possible with the support of the European Union. Head of the EU delegation to PNG, Ambassador Ioannis, said a sound trade policy is a solution to developing an economy which is big enough to provide job opportunities for the youth and women.
A national trade policy has the potential to give the impetus towards a stronger, diversified and inclusive Papua New Guinea economy where benefits are shared more evenly by the entire population.
Deputy Prime Minister and Treasurer Charles Abel said the trade strategy should be based on areas and resources of competitive advantage and efficient use of our strategic assets such as the forests and tuna stock.
The trade policy will guide state agencies to reduce red tape, to reduce the cost of trade and to facilitate market access for our local producers. We must develop our human resource capacity, assist our people to protect and use their lands and put them to productive use in a sustainable manner.
Minister Abel said the government has reviewed its trade agreements through a cost-benefit analysis study and have decided which agreements are more important to PNG. Measures will now be taken to suspend trade with countries who continue to unfairly discriminate against PNG's trade opportunities. Deli Waigeno, National EMTV News.
Financial autonomy, a city commission and the appointment of a permanent administrator are high on a list of priorities for the new Morobe MPs. The 9 MPs held a news conference late yesterday to highlight their plans. Governor Ginson Saonu says financial autonomy is crucial for Morobe if it is to retain the bulk of the goods and services tax produced in the province. Lay MP John Rosso says he will see to it that commission is set up and the public service improved.
The idea of financial autonomy for Morobe province has been discussed over 15 years, and there's a strong feeling within political and social circles that Morobe should have more control over its financial affairs. At a news conference late yesterday, Governor Ginson Saonu said with a strong united front in the Tutumang, the provincial assembly, he'll be facilitating discussions for a move towards financial autonomy.
Because Morobe making plenty money. Now in terms of kissing, me play no say kissing good. And I want to something where me like him as a national government must address him good.
It is estimated Morobe produces up to 500 million kina every year in goods and services tax. About 30 to 60 million kina is retained in the province. The rest goes to the national purse. And this was one of the reasons why former Governor Luther Wenge took the national government to court. Financial autonomy means greater spending powers and the ability to generate and keep provincial revenue. It is something that could help the province's ability to build and maintain transport infrastructure.
Me play na by go long courts and past leaders. Na court lo plan is something na only na exhibit. Me play by taking some practical step. Lo remind him all those. Don't forget Morobe.
On another outstanding issue, Ginson Saonu has made it clear that he is supporting the idea of a lay city commission. While he didn't go into the details, the governor wants to see more participation by Morobe's 9 districts if there is to be a city commission. It's a very different position from the former governor Kelly Naru, who resisted the idea of a commission.
Long lay city and me by walk close to one time, man sit down close to me. The same member of Lay. People of Lay, what him.
The city commission needs to be put in place in Lay. I'm not going to negotiate that. It is a must.
One of the other issues that is demanding attention from the Morobe MPs is the appointment of a permanent administrator. Since the exit of the late Sir Manasupe Zurunok, Morobe's administration has seen a lot of instability with several appointments of acting administrators. It's something the Tutumang will have to decide on in the coming sessions. Scott Waide, National EMTV News, Lay.
Southern Highlands regional candidates and their supporters staged a peaceful protest yesterday in Mount Hagen City, preventing the transferring of their ballot boxes to another province. Western Highlands Election Steering Committee Chairman Stanley Mipe refused to accept the counting in Mount Hagen due to no prior arrangements with the Electoral Commission office. Vasinatayama files this report from Mount Hagen.
The Southern Highlands regional candidates and their supporters do not want their ballot boxes to be transferred out of Mount Hagen City. The security forces and the Southern Highlands Election Steering Committee were going to move the boxes out to Goroka yesterday, but the supporters took to the streets of Mount Hagen and formed a human shield blocking the road. They felt that Mount Hagen is their second home and is a neutral place to count their boxes after election-related deaths in Mendi.
We were the second one in the country to vote. Now all the country can later declare opinions na mibla all in passing yet.
The Southern Highlands Election Steering Committee members were advised to move the boxes out of Mendi town after a fight broke out between supporters of the regional candidates, resulting in deaths of at least 3 people. The boxes were moved to Mount Hagen Police Station on Sunday afternoon for counting. However, the Western Highlands Election Steering Committee Chairman Stanley Mipe disagreed, stating that there were no proper arrangements made prior to the transporting of the ballot boxes. Mr. Mipe said Mount Hagen City just returned to normal after election-related violence, and the counting of the Southern Highlands boxes will start another bad situation.
And then bringing in the count from Southern Highlands into Western Highlands, while this is still fresh in the minds of the people. And you can also see that In Western Highlands, the squatter settlements and all that make up a good portion of a population from the Southern Highlands.
Mipe also said that the city authority does not want to see an influx of supporters to the city, as Southern Highlands is not far from Western Highlands. He said moving the counting venue to Goroka will be far from Mendi and more neutral. The Electoral Commission was unsuccessful in transferring the boxes yesterday to Goroka. Meanwhile, Mr. Mipe said the Electoral Commission will take all the blame if they refuse to listen and go ahead with the counting in Mount Hagen. Vasenata Yama, National EMTV News, Mount Hagen.
The people of Central Bougainville have congratulated their local MP, Father Simon Dumarino, for being given the ministerial duties of Bougainville Affairs. And they have thanked the O'Neill Able government for giving this important ministry to one of their own sons. They have called for a proper dialogue on Bougainville matters between both the national and the autonomous Bougainville government.
I'm very old, like this time, crisis even go stronghold. And line people belong in street. Or I mean, I come because of Papa blow princess on. So Miss Abel is still blow. Emo la line only go past fight. Emo lisa orami panga kamosem. Na lisa man emi kama do lisa boost rate emo I think I'm good problem la panguna too.
A Bangladesh man was burnt to ashes this morning in Wabeg town, leaving 4 of his countrymen homeless, and after their rented store was torched down. An undisclosed amount of cash and store goods worth millions of kina were also burnt to ashes. According to eyewitnesses, the fire started at around 5 a.m., burning down a building which houses several other businesses like shops and finance companies. The fire started in the kitchen area when the Bangladesh man was trying to light the gas stove. The property owner, who is an Engen man, is still shocked. The other 4 are also shocked after losing their brother and property to fire and are being interviewed at Wabeg police station and are under their care in case of retaliation by angry relatives of the property owner. The Criminal Investigation Division is currently investigating the cause of the fire. Meanwhile, Enga Provincial Police Commander George Kakas has confirmed the 4 Bangladesh lost all their passports and important documents in the fire. Morbe Governor Ginson Sanu has promised audits into the provincial government accounts after stating in his first official speech today that Morbe has more than 40 million kina in debts. Sanu and the other 8 MPs who were sworn in today as members of the Tutumang. He said the provincial administration will be tasked to show where money was spent and on what projects.
A large crowd braved the wet weather to attend the swearing-in ceremony, and while the mood was hopeful, the Morbe governor said there was much work ahead. One of the tasks is to reduce Morbe's debt of some 40 million kina. It's money owed to contractors and service providers.
And now is the time to unite.
And yesterday, spectacular scenes between Nadzap and Ley, as hundreds of people came out to welcome the new governor and other Morbe MPs. For this election, Morbians feel at ease with the group of people they've chosen at the polls, but it's not going to be an easy road.
We have to find out how those debts were incurred. Miplapai goran truna, flipping paper, one invoice, now find out.
Debt reduction will also be accompanied by an audit of the provincial government accounts. Public servants will also be tasked to account for the spending over the last 5 years. Internal audits haven't been Morbe's strongest point. The audit division has been struggling with funding, and it's hoped that this administration will change that. Scott Waide, National EMTV News, Ley.
In the news ahead, Bougainvillians query funds left in their accounts at the height of the civil war in Bougainville. Stay with us. Welcome back. The return of deported Catholic Church missionary Douglas Tennant has been described as successful. Prompted by a collaborative support from the public, the churches and political leaders who demanded the government to bring him back. Tennant is now back in East New Britain province after he arrived yesterday. Mr. Tennant from New Zealand was deported from the country 2 months ago by the Office of Immigration and Citizenship Service Authority for allegedly breaching his work permit.
These were amateur footages taken on the day Douglas Tennant was ordered to leave his home in Kokopo before being deported from the country 2 days later. And these are the pictures taken yesterday afternoon when Douglas Tennant returned to East New Britain for the first time after 2 months.
I was getting through border control.
It was a small occasion outside Tokwa Airport. Members from the Rabaul Catholic Archdiocese, the provincial government and his friends were at the airport yesterday to welcome him back. The Catholic Archbishop of Rabaul, Francisco Panfilo, says the continuous support from the public, political leaders, the Catholic Church and the PNG judiciary has retained Mr. Tennant safely.
I was pleased about that, the support that we got, the responses that we got from people. This is very positive.
Mr. Tennant from New Zealand was deported from Papua New Guinea on the 12th of June by the Office of Immigration and Citizenship Service Authority. The immigration officers claimed that Mr. Tennant has breached his work permit, but it is understood that Mr. Tennant was providing legal advice to landowners at the Sigete Mukus oil palm project in West Pomio, a disputed project developed on customary land. Mr. Tennant's deportation has received public condemnation. Many say he has contributed towards revealing illegal land deals in the province between certain landowner groups and large foreign companies. Yesterday, the Rabaul Archbishop revealed that Mr. Tennant has returned to the country under strict government conditions.
Doug Tennant is not to be involved in activities that are deemed to be activism in nature and creates disharmony among landowners. And the second condition is that Doug Tennant is to obtain the necessary certificates of clearance from the Attorney General and a practicing certificate from the Law Society if his work involves providing any legal advice on PNG laws and judicial processes.
Edwin Fidelis, National EMTV News, Kokopo.
Meanwhile, the Catholic Archbishop of Rabaul, Francisco Panfilo, has made a plea to the government not to deport foreign missionaries who have dedicated their lives to work in Papua New Guinea. Archbishop Panfilo says a new government has just been formed and the Catholic Church wants to maintain its relationship with the government to bring tangible developments. The Archbishop's comment comes following the deportation of New Zealand Catholic missionary Douglas Tennant in June, which the Catholic Church sees as a mistake made by the government.
The Catholic Archbishop of Rabaul, Francisco Panfilo, says the Catholic Church has filed a court proceeding against the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Bimbing Pato, and the Acting Chief Migration Officer, Solomon Kanta. The court proceeding was prompted by the recent deportation of New Zealand Catholic missionary Douglas Tennant in June. But yesterday, when speaking on the local church radio in Kokopo, Archbishop Panfilo says they will be dropping the case against Master Pato and Master Kanta after Douglas Tennant returned safely to Papua New Guinea this week.
Case against the Minister of Foreign Affairs, against the Acting Chief Migration Officer, and against the government, because it was against the government. We are dropping that because, well, as I said, we feel that also those accusations they were just accusations, they were not really verified.
Archbishop Panfilo says the relationship between the churches, particularly the Catholic Church and the national government, is a mutual one. The Church over the years are filling in the voids that the government failed to meet in terms of education, health and social services, mostly in remote areas of the country. But this mutual relationship has been questioned after Mr. Tennant was deported. The Catholic Church sees it as an unprovoked act of aggression.
This kind of strain in relationship is not good for anybody, neither for the government and not for the church. And we need to work together. We want to work together.
While many has seen the deporting of Douglas Tennant as a deliberate move made by the government, the Catholic Church, however, says it will see it as a mistake made by the government, and Archbishop Panfilo says that mistake must not be repeated again.
Peter O'Neill in Parliament after his election, and he stated very clearly, he admitted, he acknowledged that in the last 5 years they made mistakes, and that they would learn from their mistakes. Certainly the deportation of Doug was a mistake, and I hope that they learn. So if Rimbim Pato is going to be reconfirmed as Minister of Foreign Affairs, I hope that he learns from his mistakes too.
Edwin Fidelis, National EMTV News, Kokopo.
Following heavy rains that destroyed homes in Morbe's Huon Gulf district, more than 20 families from the Gabensis village are now living in a care center in the local primary school grounds. Member for Huon Gulf Ross Simo said district officials have been advised to assess these disaster-stricken areas.
Over 200 people from the Gabensis village are now living in this care center. Their homes were destroyed by a flood, and they have been living here for over a week, spending their nights in the center and days by the river, where the remains of their damaged houses still stand.
At the moment now, we are using my school or care center.
On the 29th and 30th of July, heavy rains experienced in the Morbe province took its toll on this riverside village. The river burst through the banks, taking down houses that were in its path. Villagers were quick to save what they could, but most of their belongings were swept away by the flood. Their gardens were also damaged. Provincial Administrator Sheila Harrow said the damages are being assessed.
We're taking stock of, how many houses are being washed out and all that.
Member for Huon Gulf Ross Simo says district officials have also been instructed to assess these areas.
We have not come back and ascertained any amount on the floods, especially up in Gabensis and Wamped and Munun and Naswapam area. After here, maybe next week, I should have something and I should know what the estimates are.
Lucy Kopana, National EMTV News, Leh.
Teachers all over the country are still waiting for their overdue salaries and allowance increase. This follows a signed agreement between the Personnel Management Department and the Teaching Services Commission last year. The agreement was to see a 3% increase for all teaching personnel starting January 1st this year.
Since January, teachers have been waiting for the salary and allowance increase that was promised as part of their salaries. Last year, Teaching Service Commission and the Personnel Management Department effected the determination of salaries and allowances for 2017 to 2019.
We gave the Teaching Service Commission and the EPM and the state a lot of time because of the situation the country is going through with the cash flow situation in the country. At the same time, we also recognize the importance of the costs relating to the national elections. And the country has delivered the elections, and we are in August, and it is only fitting that teachers must be paid under this agreement. And this is a 3% plus the teaching service allowance and other allowances that are contained in the agreement that has to be paid by the state immediately.
The agreement is a general increase for all teachers across the board, recognizing workload due to increasing classes and general working conditions. The PNG Teachers Association Secretary says, although the agreement was signed after the national budget was passed, he believes it can still be catered for by the state in the Teaching Service Personnel Emoluments Bill.
We believe that the agreement is within the budget. The national budget personnel emolument for public service is about 4 billion, and the teaching service personnel emoluments cost in the budget is about 2.2 billion. Therefore, it is only fitting that the state honors the agreement immediately.
Mr. Moane says teachers will continue to deliver, but the delay may cause inconveniences for schools around the country who are in the third quarter of classes. Marilyn Diaukatam, National EMTV News.
And now to a developing story. A Bougainvillean woman has queried monies that were held in accounts of several commercial banks before the shutdown period of the civil war on Bougainville. She has called on the government of Papua New Guinea under the leadership of Prime Minister Peter O'Neill to set up an investigative body so that these monies are returned to the account owners. Fabian Hakalitz has been following this story and brings us this report.
Monies that were held by commercial banks in customers' bank accounts during the shutdown period in Bougainville at the height of the civil war have been queried. EMTV News is aware that large sum of monies were left in bank accounts when these commercial banks fled the civil war. Christine Tonama, one of many Bougainvilleans who owned a business during the golden days of the Dan North Solomons, told EMTV News this was a dead issue, never raised, and she was happy when this media queried the issue.
Me last time one platu me go lo plesel. Last time me only one account number. Lo Westpac Bank me come check him now to come cross. Na me talk na suppose him cross na money place stop inside up and make one him. You play up to one him again. Straight him back all his accounts because money blood stop inside. People saw was money stop. So government must help me pla. Now like Bougainville Affairs Minister must help me pla lodisla. Straight with accounts blow lo Bougainville back. Na or can start or the new business blow can.
There has never been an explanation from commercial banks if a repayment to all bank account owners was essential.
Money no stop nothing. And bank working people money finish. And long time. And working people money finish. Lo profit blow only working. Maybe come money at more lo orim na. Now one may stop. You see me stop with some money. I'm go back to government. But government now, I'm sorry all people, I must help him all back. Straight him all possible blow one and Sunday or record. Kim Matinga, me too papa blow me, got big IBD and lose stop too. And by me still by me start talk lodisla. Suppose he come money like him me crisis and ongoing crisis. You mean not solve him every lo panguna yet or Bougainville crisis yet?
Prime Minister Peter O'Neill has been called on to intervene through the setting up of an inquiry as a suggested option.
Prime Minister, I do close all issues because all previous members no got mansa like we do help people back lo panguna lo mipla lo hap. Also, I think him all yet. Bell blow yet na all yet.
Fabian Hakalitz, National EMTV News.
And now looking at our finance news, the kina closed unchanged at $0.3145 in the interbank markets. At Bank South Pacific, your kina was buying $0.307 $0.3852 Australian dollars, $0.2573 euro, and 33.41 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, gold is trading higher while coffee, cocoa, and copra closed the day lower. Palm oil closed higher, crude oil is trading higher while copper closed the day lower. And on the stock market, the Dow Jones closed at 36.64 points lower, the ASX closed at 10.16 points lower, and the All Ordinaries closed at 11.1 points lower. Stories making headlines overseas. When we come back, stay tuned. Welcome back to the news. Turning overseas, new warnings today from the Trump administration to North Korea. The Defense Secretary James Mattis telling North Korea to stop actions that could lead to the end of its regime. It comes as the rhetoric escalated, with North Korea threatening to strike the territory of Guam.
President Trump's warning shot fired directly at Pyongyang tonight is sending shockwaves around the world. But ABC News has learned that threat caught some in the president's own inner circle by surprise. The president in that statement using language not vetted or pre-approved by his national security team.
North Korea best not make any more threats to the United States.
they will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen.
Sources close to the president say behind closed doors with top aides, including new Chief of Staff General John Kelly, President Trump had discussed taking a tougher tone on Pyongyang. But even members of his own national security team had no idea the president would go so far. Within a few hours, North Korea responding with its own warning, saying it is seriously considering a plan to target Guam with missiles. The U.S. territory, home to crucial military bases and 160,000 Americans, is just 2,000 miles away. Then today, Rex Tillerson sending a message of his own, landing in Guam, offering very different words.
What the president was doing is sending a strong message to North Korea in language that Kim Jong-un would understand, because he doesn't seem to understand diplomatic language.
Then the president himself weighed in, tweeting, "Our nuclear arsenal is now far stronger and more powerful than ever before. Hopefully we will never have to use this power." But his initial words have sparked international reaction. From New Zealand,
I think the comments are not helpful in an environment that's very tense.
To Germany's Foreign Office, saying saber rattling won't help.
18 people, part of grooming gangs in the UK, have been convicted of child sex and drug offences. The 17 men and a woman were found guilty applying young women and girls with alcohol and drugs before forcing them to have sex, some as young as 14.
Guilty of causing girls and women serious harm. Caught as part of Operation Sanctuary, one of the biggest sexual exploitation investigations in the north of England. Almost 100 perpetrators have already been convicted. One 17-year-old was raped at a party session organised by local men. It's a familiar story.
I woke up in the morning. The wardrobe was pushed up against the door.
Her police interview was played to the court. To protect her identity, we've asked actors to read what was said.
He'd had sex with us while I was asleep. Still now, I'm a bit confused about it.
How do you feel when he told you he'd done that to you?
Dirty. Confused.
So how many sessions would you say you've been to?
About 60.
It's in houses like these where the sessions took place.
Please. SIM cards, drugs, computers, cash.
Victims were given drink and drugs and could not defend themselves against sexual abuse. But in 2013, 2 of them came forward. One had been trafficked from a children's home. The other had learning difficulties. It started a long and complex investigation. Most of the perpetrators were from Pakistani, Indian or Bangladeshi backgrounds. What happened on these streets is now the subject of a serious case review, but the council's chief executive says it's not the only authority with problems of this kind.
We do not believe that what we have uncovered in Newcastle is unique.
For the victims they harmed, it's been a long and traumatic journey, but the evidence they gave has helped jail 4 of these perpetrators. The rest are due to be sentenced next month.
In a bid to bring male sexual abuse out of the shadows, 22 survivors have been photographed and interviewed as part of an international art project. The current project has profiled survivors in 11 countries so far, encouraging others being abused to come forward.
Bearing his soul to the camera, Jim Goodwin is a father, psychiatric nurse and a survivor.
Look right into that lens and just communicate.
And now he's going public about the brutality he suffered at boarding school, where he was sexually abused by other students.
I was the first person I've ever heard of who'd been raped. You know, you knew that women were, but I've never heard of it happening to another guy.
He's telling all of this to David Lysak, a fellow survivor and founder of the Bristlecone Project in the United States. They want to help other victims come out of the shadows.
These Bristlecone men really are standing for a great number of men who are still silenced by what happened to them.
More than 100 survivors have been profiled around the world so far.
What we're doing here is no more shame.
Yeah. Tom Scott was sexually abused by his mother as a teenager and only told people of his ordeal 5 years ago.
Thank you, Tom.
Now the whole world will know.
Even if just one person gets that message and comes forward, it's all worth it.
11 survivors have shared their stories in Christchurch.
They've done that because in the hope that if the young people can see that they've had the courage to come forward and speak, that it'll allow others to come forward.
From Christchurch, he'll head to Nelson and Dunedin, then the North Island, where he'll photograph 15 more survivors for the exhibition that will be shown here at Canterbury Museum. The project has brought these men closer.
Start telling your story and tell all of it and keep on telling it, and that's how we heal.
And helped with their own healing too.
In Trukai Sports ahead, PNG beats Nauru. I will be back with the details.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. SPPNG Hunters powerhouse David Loko has compared the 2014 Hunters team to what it is now. Loko was part of the 2014 team that first took part in the Queensland Interest Super Cup.
Loko didn't make the team in the 2015 and 2016 season, having missed out on the past 2 years. He played with the Lace Necks Tigers and led his team to victory in 2016. After making it back into the Hunters this year, he has been a huge boost for the forward pack.
I have to work out on the training, follow the management. They give me what to do, daily gym and field, so I have to work out. Forget myself, improve every match, week in, week out there.
He says back in 2014, the team was still getting used to the level of competition in the Interest Super Cup.
In 2014, it's first time we go, so 2014, yeah. So we out from there, so we started to go into the system to improve ourselves. Yeah.
He says this year, the team has a bigger chance of winning the Interest Super Cup compared to 2014.
We have trust, confidence. We're going to push it day by day and push through to the end there.
With the Hunters to face the Blackhawks this weekend, in what is going to be one of their biggest games this season, Loko is confident they will come out on top.
We are just preparing for the training, waiting for our management to prepare us for what to do, and we just push on for that.
Elijah Levet, National EMTV Sports.
To AFL, PNG Mosquitoes have beaten their Pacific brothers Nauru in their second match after playing Ireland yesterday in Ballarat. Mozzies, showing great strength and prowess, took the better of Nauru, winning with 84 points to Nauru 29. MTV's Godwin Eki filed this report from Melbourne.
After losing their first match to Ireland on Sunday, the PNG Mosquitoes, who played against Nauru yesterday in their second match, saw the Mosquitoes suck the blood out of Nauru in the first 2 quarters of the match. Nauru, putting the game plan together, saw them strike back at the Mozzies in the third quarter, scoring 2 goals and a couple of behinds. With 40 points difference between the two teams, Mosquitoes held on tight in the last quarter as they were chased by Nauru. With less than 6 minutes on the clock, the Mozzies added another goal and a behind, bringing their score up to 84 points. But in the last remaining minutes, the Nauru side had their defence pull on strong, keeping the Mozzies occupied at their side of the field. After much anticipation for 1 or 2 more goals, it was already too late for the Mozzies, who were planning a 100-point win, but still ended the game on a high over Nauru with 84 points lead. The Mozzies will face United States in their third match on Saturday, and if they win the match, they are more likely to face their rival Ireland once more. Godwin Eki, National EMTV Sports, Melbourne.
The National Schools and Women's Rugby League Championship is set to kick off this weekend in Lae. First games start tomorrow at 9 a.m. and will see Southern taking on New Guinea Islands, followed by current under-16 champions Northern up against the Highlands region. The under-18s will start their matches on Saturday, while the women's matches begin on Sunday. A women's squad will be announced after the championships to start preparations for the Rugby League World Cup. True Guy Sports continues when we come back. Stay with us.
True Guy Sports.
Welcome back to True Guy Sports. High Performance PNG, in conjunction with the International University Sports Federation Oceania and Papua New Guinea University Sports Association, will host a leadership workshop under the banner of Be the Influence. The workshop aims to foster and encourage students and sports enthusiasts to become stronger leaders and be successful in their leadership role. The keynote speaker at the workshop will be FISU Oceania Continental Manager Donna Spathman. Spathman is an experienced manager in sport event industry attached to Australian University and assistant professor at Bond University. The two-day workshop starts tomorrow and ends on Saturday. The U.S. Treasury Department said late yesterday that they had sanctioned Mexican soccer star Rafael Marquez for allegedly serving as a frontman for a suspected drug trafficker.
Rafael Marquez from the cattle-riddled state of Michoacan played in Europe for clubs Barcelona and Monaco and still occasionally captains the national team, having represented his country in 4 World Cups. Marquez, along with singer Julio Cesar Alvarez and almost 2 dozen other Mexican nationals, is accused of financial ties with Raul Flores Hernandez, a suspected drug trafficker with links to Sinaloa cartel and the Jalisco New Generation gang. Shane Saroya, National EMTV Sports.
And that ends True Guy Sports. The weather details when we come back.
True Guy Sports. True Guy Sports.
The weather details are proudly brought to you by Dulux Weather Shield. Worth doing with Dulux.
Looking at the weather forecast for this afternoon and tonight, in the southern region mostly fine, although partly cloudy in Port Moresby, Alotau and Popondetta, mostly fine and windy in Daru, and partly cloudy with evening shower or 2 in Kerema. In the Momasa region, cloudy with rain showers in Lae, mostly fine although partly cloudy in Medang, fine with a shower or 2 developing in Wewak and Vanimo. In the New Guinea Islands region, cloudy with some showers developing in Lorengau, partly cloudy with few showers later in Kavieng, partly cloudy with a shower or 2 in Kokopo and Rabaul, Kimbe and Buka. And in the Highlands region, partly cloudy with evening light showers in all centres.
The weather details are proudly brought to you by Dulux Weather Shield. Worth doing with Dulux.
And that's been National EMTV News this Thursday, 10th of August 2017. From the entire news team, pleasant viewing. Good night.